enough, we played into a hand that they thought they had won. But here was the mistake in that. The real problem in Mongolia is actually not just Gerstove emissions. The real problem in Mongolia is a copper mine and a coking coal reserve, which is in the South Gobi Desert. And the real problem with that is that a series of really reckless and very cavalier and callous individuals had essentially decided to enter into a corrupt contract to rape the Gobi Desert of its resources. And oddly enough, while the Kuwaitis thought they had stopped Exemplar Zero by not allowing us to finish the Gerstove emission project, we actually had a pathway that was opened up to every member of parliament and the president of Mongolia. And I'm pleased to report to you that as of approximately 2 months ago, the parliament and the government of Mongolia have decided to take active stewardship over and block several parts of the production of the South Gobi Desert, which does something very important. It preserves the fossil water of the Gobi Desert. That's a particularly sensitive ecosystem. And interestingly enough, one of the things that came out of this project was a recognition that all you do is put processes in motion. Sometimes the impulse that you think is the impulse that's going to animate you actually is merely the context-setting impulse. It opens up the door for you to actually have the conversation, which then opens up the next door to have the next conversation. And oddly enough, the perpetrator of the greatest egregious mineral and resource injustice in Mongolia, which was Robert Friedland's Oyoltogi mine, which then was taken a large interest by Rio Tinto, is now essentially in the throes of possibly never coming online. If it comes online, it will come online at a very different scale, and it will come online suitable to the communities of Mongolia rather than suitable to the interests of a series of expats that decided to rape and pillage the land. Now, why do I tell you that story? Number one, by linear definitions, we failed. We didn't solve the air pollution problem. But I'm going to ask you a question. How much do you suppose smelters on the Chinese border would add to air pollution for the world? Do you suppose it would be as bad as the Gerstoves? No. It would be orders of magnitude worse. How much do you suppose the coking coal reserve developments that were going on with nobody watching were going to be worth in terms of their harm to the world? Those going forward? No. See, if you think about it from the old paradigm, which says that everything that is the impulse that you choose to follow is an impulse that has to end with your projection of the outcome, I think you spend most of your life being very disappointed. But if you actually realize that the impulse of creativity is often just the context in which creativity for something that you didn't even know you were concerned about actually can emerge, in that ecosystem, you are empowered far beyond any linear plan or any linear time and space you could do. And guess who got to protest that deal? You ready for this? Nobody. Rio Tinto found out this happened when the Mongolian parliament voted to block the development. They didn't have any lobbyists because they didn't need any lobbyists, because corruption always wins until the day it doesn't.
Thank you. Nick Begish. How do I pronounce your name? It is Begish. I'd like to, well, firstly, happy birthday.
Thanks.
54, 5 kids, 3 grandchildren? 4 grandchildren. I'd like to salute the memory of your father, and I'd like to salute your family's DNA for being an endemic, a chronic corrective to the United States or North American political syndrome. I'd like to thank you for reminding us in such detail of the interests and the embrace of the modern military-industrial complex. It's something so extraordinary, so beyond the usual mindset, and we need to be reminded of it constantly. You spoke about government becoming more opaque in direct proportion to the enforced transparency of citizens. It should be the other way around. It should be the other way around. I wanted you to speak a little bit about the hemi-sync, if you don't mind, because some people didn't get that. I spoke to some folks in the hall and they want to learn about this technology. If you wouldn't mind synthesizing that in a minute, I'd greatly appreciate it. Because that to me is something which is here and now. It's something which can be utilized by any of us and it can make a huge difference instantly. Is that my question?
Can you hear me? Yeah. Is it working? All right, good. It was in the context of the last hour of my presentation, which was on mind effects and things you do to enhance human performance. And HemiSync is one of those simple technologies that creates whole brain coherence. There's actually patents on the technology. Robert Monroe was the inventor. The patents were granted a couple of decades ago, actually. And it creates balance between left and right hemispheres, which allow us to combine our creative and analytical capacities as human beings. There's other technologies, the same thing, electrocranial stimulation, light and sound devices, but the absolute cheapest, easiest, most accessible is the HemiSync. And whole brain coherence, the idea of using both sides of the human brain, this is where our potential is. This is where most small children are, a lot more brain coherence when they're young until we integrate them into what we call education. And then it starts to drift one way or the other, and they tend to dominate one side or the other. Real change starts with us individually. We work out in a gym, a lot of us do. I work out with a stack of wood, so that makes a little more balanced situation for me. I save a little energy and use a little energy. But the brain is where it's at. If we can utilize more of what we are, many believe, and I'm one of those, that the next evolution of humankind is whole brain coherence, our ability to use our brains, use our creative capacities, our analytical capacities, which makes us all extremely potent. I think we're all created in the image of the Creator, however we view that. That means that we have a lot more going. I mean, I don't think it's how we look, I think it's what we are. We're a microcosm, a hologram of the whole, and through that we have the potential to change everything about everything, and there's plenty of people in this room to do it. Every good revolution begins with one. There's a lot more than one here.
Thank you. Actually, Sasha, you very well intuited that I wanted to add something to that, since I've been involved in whole brain coherence for many years myself, and had a center in New York City called the Center for Creative Well-Being, in which we used light and sound machines, but we also used nature's own water, salt water, in a flotation tank. One of the least known, at this point, least used ways of creating brain coherence completely naturally by sensory discipline, really. We call it deprivation, but it's more than that. But I actually wanted to circle around in appreciation of what you're saying to whole heart integration and coherence as well. And you're familiar with the work of the Institute of Heart Math, no doubt, right? And for those of you who don't know it, it's certainly something to look up. You can Google it. They've done a lot of work with this. But we've got EEGs, but we've also got measuring instruments these days for heart coherence. And because we've got some 30 to 40,000 neurons in and around our heart, it's an autonomous thinking organ. Most people don't realize that, but it is. And so the old adages from ancient wisdom of do what your heart bid you, and just ask your heart what to do, and think with your heart, actually has gotten borne out in common neurophysiological research. So I just wanted to bring that to bear along with the brain. There's several other brains going on in this human system. So thank you. Absolutely, absolutely. Sasha, I know you have a couple of questions for Michael Tellinger et al.
Well, actually, the real question I've got, Mike, is I'm Zimbabwean. I was born near Domboshawa, a stone's throw from Domboshawa. And my question was, does that mean that I'm more Anunnaki than the next man? And if so, is there a trust fund?
All the gold belongs to you.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Answer is yes.
All the gold belongs to you. You can go back and claim it any time. Robert Mugabe did, so why not you?
He got the Savile Row suit. Thank you, Mr. Vossa, sir, for being a wonderful, mysterious, shamanic presence today. You spoke very well.
Thank you. Something I wanted to share, Sasha, is the work that I showed is 12 years old. I decided after a certain period in the year 2000 that I stopped doing that technology art and moved into research. So that would be another hour of talking. I've spent time visiting labs around the world, investigating alternative energy technologies, looking at sustainability, built my own sand filters for water, looking at gardening, all of that stuff. So after not doing any more design work, I'm ready.
Excellent. And I want to ask you that same question that we asked Dan Winter yesterday, which was that if you were banished to a desert island for 1,000 years and had to carry the stigmata of one geometric form emblazoned on your mind's eye, what would it be?
It would be the form of a galaxy. The spiral of water and life.
That's pretty geometric.
I want to just thank you also for I kind of said in my introduction that your work was mind-blowing and mind-altering. I don't think we ever need drugs anymore.